Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Automotive Design Planet interview with me, Michael Nash, and Pratap Bose, Chief Design Officer at Mahindra and Mahindra. Thanks for joining me, Pratap.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Automotive Design Planet, for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you guys. I've spoken to you before, of course, and glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, obviously, we don't need to give our audience too much of an introduction to you, Pratap. So maybe let's just go right to the start. And I know that you graduated from RCA only not that long ago with an MA, and then you've had an astonishing career to date. But I just wonder, before going to university, do you have any sort of initial sort of early memories of being interested in cars, interested in design?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you're making me feel younger than I am. I graduated from RCA, 20 years ago, so in 2003. The memory of, or the earliest I can remember wanting to be a car designer would go back to probably when I was 10 or 11 years old. I've said this story a few times. I think, growing up in Bombay in India, you didn't get to see so many cars in those days, in the 70s and 80s. I mean, of course, now in India, you find anything that you'd find anywhere else in the world. But it was quite a closed economy, and there were 2 or 3 primary manufacturers, and anyone who wanted, another type of automobile had to sort of import that. At great expense, so to see an imported, a Mercedes or a Kampala in those days, Chevys, was quite a rare sight. And when you did see one, you did really look at it. And I think my earliest memory of wanting to be a car designer was when I saw a Mercedes 280 SEL. I still remember metallic blue 4-door saloon standing in front of the Taj Hotel in Bombay. And it was a very, very, it was an arresting sight. I think, it's never left my memory. And, I was aware of architecture as a profession in those days because some of my friends, elder siblings, etc., were studying architecture. But I didn't know there was a profession of car design. Again, like I said, late 80s, early 90s. And seeing that car standing in front of the building really made me sort of realize that there must be someone designing a beautiful automotive object. And that's where I think, started getting interested in car design. There was no course then to study car design. So I went on to study industrial design in India at the National Institute of Design, NID. Many people may or may not know it's one of the premier institutes in India, and I studied product design. But of course, I was lucky enough to choose projects which were automotive. And that's where it all began, actually.
Yeah, amazing story. I love that idea of you just looking at this beautiful car with like fresh eyes and also like total wonderment as well. Yeah. I imagine those moments will probably get stuck in your brain because you're young, you're developing, and it probably has an impact on your entire career, right?
Yeah, it had an impact on the choices I made, right through education and all of that, right? Because as I researched more into design, not architectural design, and not fashion design, but real product industrial design. I sort of had that focus always, front and center of everything I was doing. That, as soon as you finish schooling in India, you finish, in what's year 12. As soon as you finish that, you have to go into a junior college, and then the choices of subjects you take there to then enable you to go to design university. So all my choices were totally driven by that one vision. In fact, you come to a crossroads where, you have a choice of choosing architecture, or in my case, architecture or engineering or design, and I chose design. And you're right. It really does stay with you, and it guides and influences your choices.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you just briefly then take us through the steps of, getting to NID and then, heading over to RCA, coming out of there, and then at what point the point that I think I'm really interested in is how you discovered your own language, how you started to formulate this stamp that you have that is so apparent across a lot of the models that you've worked on.
Yeah, so you look, NID was established, very much with the foundations of the Bauhaus sort of philosophy, right? Form, function, manufacturability in mass. So as Bauhaus was created, coming out of the arts and crafts movement, into a really industrial design movement, NID in the 60s was established along those principles. So form, function, and that sort of relationship was very important, that the form should reflect the function, right? So you are actually, your training and your grounding is in those principles, which I think, still hold true for many, many fields of design. But when I graduated, my first job was, when I graduated from NID, my first job was in Italy in a two-wheeler company, called Piaggio, and they had incredible brands, the Vespa, the Gilera. Piaggio itself was a brand they used. And when I moved to Italy, I realized that, yes, there's a form function balance, but you have to bring something, which is called flair, or you have to bring a sense of emotion into automotive products. That's where I think automotive is very different from, product design, or at least was product design in those days, right? Today, products are, normal products are also as emotional, if not more in many cases. Your iPhone or a beautiful coffee machine can strike that much, as much of an emotional chord as can an automobile. So coming out of that really, regimented, strict, disciplined Bauhaus education or Bauhaus-based education, I realized that in Italy they were able to add flair to anything they did. If it was a coffee cup, or if it was a Vespa, or if it was a Alpha 158, 159. I realized that you needed to bring flair to design. In addition to solving the functional side of things. So that's what I learned actually, and I still remember the clay modelers or the modelers in those days were hard modelers in Italy. They would move their tools and their hands in a certain way, and that gave the shape to whatever we were creating. And one of them still, I remember, told me that if my hand twists or if I have to move it in an unnatural way, that will reflect on the surface. And that again stayed with me a lot. Those kind of 3 or 4 years I spent there were deeply ingrained in what I did. And then, after that, I went to the RCA. I did 2 years there. Post that, I moved to Japan. I worked with Mitsubishi and Mercedes-Benz. There again, working in a German company in Japan teaches you a lot of things. So every sort of cultural experience I had, if it was a country or a company, because both have cultures, really helped, shape how I look at design. And one of the seminal moments was we were working on a new generation S-Class. I still remember. I'm talking about 2006, 7. And it was one of the last visits of Professor Pfeiffer to, Mercedes-Benz Japan studio. And I was, really, I was stressing over, I have to make it look German, and it has to be German, and this and that and the other. And when I asked him, Professor, is it, when he came to my 40% clay, I said, is it German enough? He said, don't worry about Germany. Is it Mercedes enough? That's what you have to ask. And that was a huge moment for me. I think it's very important to reflect the brand that you're working for. And the brand is actually, what goes out there and sells. And if your philosophy and the brand philosophy can somewhere meet, then I think you are successful both as a designer and as a professional. So this is very important. when you choose, or when students make their choice of where they would want to go, of course, start your career wherever you get the opportunity. Don't be choosy then. But eventually try and move into a company or a space or a philosophy which somehow aligns with your own. And I think that's the most comfortable fit. If I can say anything about a 25-year career, it's that if you are able to synergize with brand philosophy and your own design philosophy, that's where I think you can bring a lot of successful products.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And do you think that what do you think about this idea of self-brand as well? So, sort of building your own brand of ideas and design, sort of. Yeah.
I think that's very important. Look, when you are fortunate enough to be in a position of a design director, what does that actually mean? It means that you give direction. You choose a direction for the brand or company that you're working for. So I think the role of a design director is very, very fundamentally important, that you are able to direct and guide not only your team, not only the design team, but also the management of a company to a certain vision, to a certain direction. You give direction. That's why you call a design director. It's not just a position on a table. It has a much, much deeper and fundamental role. And giving direction is where I think you can bring in a personal stamp, right? Because in any project, you're always at a crossroads and you can always choose 4 or 5 ways to go. But the way you recommend is where you can bring in a stamp that's saying that, this is where I see XYZ brand in the next 10, 20 years. And that's that critical fork in the road where you have to convince the management team in the company that, you're going to spend X billion dollars to take that particular road. And that's where your personal authority, your personal word, the weight of your word, the weight of your experience really has to come to play. So I see it more as that, the direction that someone chooses or the company chooses, rather than, signed by XYZ person. Brands and products live long after the design directors are gone. And I think when someone looks at your work 10, 20, 30 years down the line, yes, they may or may not know that, Pratap Bose and team had something to do with it, but they will definitely know that it came from this company at that point in time, and this was a choice they made. And, it's amazing that, you are seeing a car 30 years later and it looks great or fresh or was a statement in its time. I think that's more important. You should look at it from a longer perspective rather than, sign on a car. I mean, it's those days are gone, Michael. I mean, no one person designs a car anymore. I think anyone who says that is either very deluded or is deluding others. I mean, we have a huge, huge team of people within and outside design that actually shape what is going to happen or what a customer drives. And, so I find it very simplistic that someone to say, yeah, it's signed by so-and-so. Those days in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s are gone. I would stress to students and younger designers coming in that be a part of that great team that creates a fantastic product. And I think if you're able to do that, you will put your stamp on it somehow or the other. So
it's all about teamwork. I think most things in life are all about teamwork.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, in the automotive industry is so complex now. To put a car on the road is not a simple task. Legislation, ecology, the technical aspects. There are so many angles that you need, so many, profitability. You should be in the business to make money at the end of it and then plow it back into the business. So you have to look at any product, but automotive is, I think, one of the most complex objects of the industrial and industrialized world. So the more you understand, different points of views in the company, the better it is. And I think, yes, teamwork is therefore important to glue it all together. It can't be teamwork, and it can't be a committee, because then you try to make everyone happy and then finally no one is. So that's the other danger, that it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be trying to please everyone. It's teamwork, yes, but you have to pull the teams in the direction, you truly believe a certain brand or product must go. So, there's a bit of both. At some points you will have those difficult discussions, where some part of the company is not particularly happy at that point, right? But you have to have the courage of conviction to say that, look, when this comes out in 4 years and lives for another 7 or 8 years, you're looking at a 15-year cycle. And, most companies can't predict that. And they look to the design team to therefore, gaze into the future and what will last for 15 years. Is a call I think many in the company can't make. So you have to therefore manage that conflict, manage the comfort that some parts of the company feel with going with what's known, and the discomfort that some parts of the company will feel with going with something that's not known and not predictable and challenging. So that line is so fine, and it's again up to the director to help navigate those choices. So
I can't begin to imagine how difficult the balance must be juggling those things. So if we just talk about some of the things that you guys have recently been doing, then obviously towards the end of last year and the start of this year, there's been a big EV push from Mahindra and Mahindra. We saw the release of the XUV 400 electric SUV.
Yep.
And we saw some new concepts, the BE concepts sort of coming out. So I guess it would be good to understand a little bit about your EV strategy in terms of design, how these two directions are kind of going to sculpt the portfolio, and maybe also a little bit about how you plan on using design as a differentiator in the EV market.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, Michael, again, known and unknown to some, we are a house of brands currently. We have 4 very, very strong brands with their own design language. So Thar, then the Scorpio, Bolero, and XUV. This is 4 sort of brands that exist within the company. And why I call them brands and not sort of sub brands or nameplates is that people, our customer base is very loyal to each nameplate. So someone considering a Scorpio will not consider a Thar or a Bolero or a XUV, right? So they are very, very sort of almost separate in that sense. So each one we are of course developing a design language for. XUV is always athletic, Scorpios are always muscular. The Thar has to always be iconic. So, we've got some descriptors for each of these 4. That's in today's world, right? In the ICE world. Now, we also want to attract people who perhaps don't consider Mahindra at all, right? None of these brands or the master brand maybe speaks to them, and, they don't consider us. So for that, we said, okay, we have the incredible opportunity with an all-new architecture called InGlow. We have an incredible opportunity to create a 5th brand called B. B is basically, be what you want to be as you are, be comfortable in your own skin. So B was created to really push the envelope and bring in people who the Mahindra brand doesn't talk to today, which is sizable, So this turning point actually gave us an opportunity to create, the new brand B. On the existing brands, we chose XUV to electrify first, because that's really, like I said, about athletic performance. And that's what you see. So the 400 is the first product we've done. But in the all-new born electric architecture, we have what we call XUV E8, E9, and then on the B side, B05, B07, B09. And from sort of December 24 onwards, we'll start bringing all of these products to the market. I think every sort of 4, 5, 6 months you'll have one of these being delivered. So and that's what the team is focused on now. Bringing 5 of these e-SUVs born electric to the market in India, and then hopefully we can take them overseas as well.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's great to see this portfolio come to fruition, and it seems like a really exciting time. I wonder about. Sorry, go on.
No, I'm saying it's a busy time for everyone, but it's definitely an exciting time.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder about the challenges you mentioned there with B, like bringing in a new I guess audience or target market. But I wonder maybe more about like the practical challenges of EV design. We often hear about sort of constraints with room and packaging of battery packs, and how that plays a role on the design side of things. And I think if we talk about the interior in particular, we always think about how to better, insulate the cabin so you don't get all this wind and tire noise and things like that. I wonder if there are certain things that you're particularly focused on at the moment, so you can bring these vehicles into fruition, really.
Yeah. So, Michael, one of the big elements, of course, in EV design, because of range anxiety, etc., is aerodynamics. That really plays a much larger role, I would say, in EVs. This is mass market EVs. I'm not talking about sports cars or performance cars. I mean, but in mass market EVs, we've seen the emphasis on aerodynamic performance is a lot higher, and that sometimes dictates the choices you make. About the battery packaging, we've been fortunate because SUVs have a certain ground clearance visually as well as functionally, and then therefore having this battery pack underneath the occupants, but raising the whole vehicle actually helps us. So we've been, like I said, fortunate that we aren't doing a slam to the ground sedan or something like that, where the battery packaging and the stack up can be a challenge because it pushes everything, above. So you have ground clearance, battery thickness, back thickness, then you have, the occupants beyond that. So we've been lucky because we've moved everything up in space to give us the kind of ground clearance that we need. We have, so we have been successful, therefore, in trying to integrate the EV skateboard into SUV design. But yes, having said that, NVH, like you mentioned, cabin insulation, even sound design. I think sound design is something we don't talk about much, but EV makes no sound if it's on or off. And sometimes even as a driver, you don't know if your EV is actually on or off, and it can be a safety issue. So for example, it could be on and you happen to step on the gas, or not the gas, on the pedal, you could move and actually injure someone. So, what sort of sound do you bring into EV as a part of the user experience is something that we are looking at very, very carefully. That it doesn't become annoying, but it's also, when it's needed for safety or for any other part of the experience, it's the right sound. So sound design is one of those aspects of EV design. I mentioned aero. Weight is the third one. We in mass market don't use exotic materials. We don't use carbon fiber, etc. We are, of course, in high strength steels and hot form steels. The crash characteristics of EVs is very different compared to ICE. Again, the battery pack has to be protected as well as the occupants. So the load parts are quite different. So there are some aspects unique to EVs. We do find, however, that you mentioned that the space opens up. So for the like-to-like, let's say, exterior footprint, you get 15-20% more interior space. And I think that's a great aspect. You can store more stuff. You can give more of that space to occupants. So, like I said, sitting in a like-to-like EV versus ICE, EV can feel a lot more, and is actually, in fact, a lot more roomier area. So, yeah, if that's what you want to bring into the customers in your segment, I think there's an advantage to having an all-new born electric architecture.
Yeah, great. And what about like pricing? Because we talk about all this amazing tech coming into the car, as well as electrification. There's all incredible ADAS systems and lots of like digital tools and things that we can put into the HMI, and then we have sustainable materials inside and all these beautiful things that we talk about. But at the end of the day, this is all going to have a cost impact on the consumer, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. To be able to balance these two is always important in automotive design, or probably in any design. But yes, you're right. The expectations from customers of an EV is that it's a more cutting edge, technologically advanced product than its ICE, let's say, counterpart. People, because of its EV, because of its electric sort of drive and propulsion system, people expect a technological content to be higher than a regular car, and you're absolutely right about that. And we've therefore showcased edge to edge 3 screens. We've done that in a way that it's not too oppressive. Our HMI experience will play out beautifully. We are going to start bringing in at our price points, materials that are either recyclable or recycled to a certain content. There's a huge price differential still, but we will make that commitment and that step as a part of our overall sort of commitment to the planet, as a part of Mahindra Group's commitment to the planet. We will start introducing these materials even at our sort of price points and price range. It is always a challenge, don't get me wrong, but I think by making the right choices, by playing up volume. So, why do we show these 5 EVs? Why are we migrating to a born electric architecture? So that we have the volume advantage. By 2027, we expect EVs to be 30% of our own volume, right? So, and the market will also be roughly similar in India, between 25 to 30%. So we are playing that volume game as well, so that, we can speak to suppliers and talk about larger volumes for anything that we source. And that's the advantage, right? So a lot of commonality where the customer won't see it, so we are able to really leverage our numbers to get prices that will ultimately lead to an attractive showroom price for our customers.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you think that EVs are like the biggest challenge that yourself and other designers have faced for like a few decades, or do you think that there's something else as well? Maybe, I don't know, autonomous driving potential?
Yeah, I think every project is a challenge. Don't get me wrong. The challenges could be on a cost side, it could be on a business side, it could be on a socio-economic and socio-cultural side. So most pieces of automotive design that at least I've been involved in has had some measure of a challenge, right? Some could have been even how do you turn a brand around? It could be a challenge of that nature. Whereas, like you mentioned, going forward in the future is what is this whole EV world opening us up to as a society? Because recycling and batteries and battery life and all of that also comes into play. It's not a silver bullet which will solve all of the world's problems, right? There's also issues on material. There's issues on the material that goes into batteries. And then, how do you recycle all of that? So I think while you're solving some cases, you're creating issues on the other hand. So I think, designers need to be very, very aware of that and be a part of the solution, right? And, so we are already looking at what how we source our batteries, who we source them from, what are the ethics involved there, and then ultimately what will happen to, we are starting in 2024 really with our Born Electric. What starts happening in 2030, right? When those first cars or first SUVs are already 6, 7, 8 years old. So, I think we are all conscious of it. The solution needs to be thought through. There's no doubt. And legislation is one thing. The Indian government and most global governments are becoming quite serious about all of this. But I think as a company as well, you have to have a philosophy of truly wanting to, leave the earth a better place than you found it. I mean, I think that's what drives us. That's why this massive shift towards EV, our commitment towards EV, both in terms of resources and, projects and, technology and everything that we've put behind it. You're absolutely right. I think being aware of what you're solving and what you're creating is always something that designers should keep in mind.
Yeah, it's about conscious decisions, right?
Look at the name of this, right? Automotive Design Planet. I mean, those 3 words literally encompass what the world, automotive world and the world in general is about for us. It's automotive design and how that integrates into helping make a better planet. So I think I compliment you all on your own name, actually.
Well, I can't take any credit for that, but thank you anyway. So I guess then, if we're looking at the kind of next steps for Mahindra and Mahindra, I want, like, obviously you have this big push in EV, but I wonder, in terms of your daily kind of nitty gritty design pushes for your team, are there certain things that you're pushing the envelope on at the moment? I'm wondering more in terms of design processes. Are you looking more into the use of certain tools at the moment?
Yes, and look, I just wanted to clarify that yes, 30% of our portfolio and volume will be EVs, but we've still got the 70%, which is ICE. So we don't take our eye off that ball at all. And, we continue working on that entire part of that portfolio. In terms of tools, Michael, I feel, the students graduating from universities now are quite sort of multimedia and multi-skilled, I must say. Many of them can go from a sketch to a blender model very, very quickly. They can get into animation. So, when we do our design storytelling internally and externally, we draw on all of these new skills that we didn't have. For example, when we graduated 20 years ago from RCA, we didn't have this repertoire of skills. I mean, we could sketch, of course. We were very good at clay modeling. Some of us were good at started alias, but I think where students are now is a completely different place. So what we do is we're able to very quickly go into 3 dimensions, digital 3D, but we haven't at all been able to get ourselves off clay. I mean, we've tried, but it doesn't work, at least for us, and for me it doesn't. And so this balance of digital and physical is important to strike, and we do that really well, I think, or let's say we do that in a more seamless way than ever before. Because, like I said, the designer today doesn't have to depend on an alias or a digital modeler to move the sketch from 2D to 3D. They can do this themselves very quickly on Blender, on all these immersive tools that they use, and we get models much faster. So you get to 3D faster, and then you can get from 3D digital to 3D physical, therefore even quicker. So we've been able to crunch actually the design time. There's no doubt. I mean, we are doing the entire, sort of first range of B, etc. We are able to do in 32 months, which was unheard of, just a few years ago. And we're able to do this because I think we're deploying the right tools in the right place. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that's sort of quite fresh and new. We still are not able to sign off, billions of dollars of investment just wearing a pair of goggles and immersing into a 3D model world. But we do that as a tool in our creation process. The sign-offs are still very much on a full-size painted clay that management and designers can walk around and discuss. You can bring in people from marketing or other areas of the business. But like I said, we get to that point a lot faster.
Yeah, that's. I think for me, that's quite a comforting thing to know that you're still working with the physical models and things. Do you think maybe that has something to do with the need for this emotional attachment with vehicles? Obviously, you can do so much with digital tools right now, but perhaps if you're having something in the physical. In a physical presence in the studio, you can actually see the lines, you can see the form properly, and maybe you can understand the sort of emotional connection that you would have with that vehicle more when it's in the metal.
Yes, absolutely. I think we don't sell people an image, right? We don't sell them an image, or we don't sell them a movie clip. What we do sell is a physical object made in steel, plastic, glass, and rubber, right? So I think the way you physically interact with a physical model, 1:1 scale, is still irreplaceable, because that's what you will hopefully see in the showroom in 24 months after you've signed off. And like I said, the design sign off stage or judging design, we find, at least in us in Mahindra and our team, we find to do that with a physical model is much easier, because you can all stand and look at the same thing from the same point. In some of these digital immersion experiences, depending on where you are, someone's a little taller, someone's seeing it from another angle, and it's not as interactive. Yes, you can interact with the model, but you can't interact as easily with each other. And I think that's a critical part of the design process, interacting with each other and what you are seeing. That I think we've not found a solution in the digital world, at least so far. So yeah, for us, and look, the first things when we see our clays, or when we have the clay in front of us, we run our hands over surfaces. This is too fat, or that's too hollow, or this is too flat. Only your hand is also a tool, and people forget that. And you can't touch a digital model, right? You can't get that sensation, that feedback when you run your hand over a fender or over a feature on the hood. Your hand gives you a lot of information. And again, management, designers, everyone, we all tend to, I try to tell the management, please don't touch the model, because they're very fragile, you'll break something. But it's a human reaction to go and run your hands over something like that, and we love that. We have a lot of broken handles and broken details from models, but we like the fact that people interact with our design objects the same way as you would with a final car. You will run your hand over something. You will rest your palm on the bonnet, and you will feel the sort of power of a vehicle by even with your hand. So I think that sense of touch is something that people don't realize is so subconscious that you will do it. You sit in an interior buck, your hands do run over things. They do touch the surfaces, they do rest on the center console or the door trim, and it's all subconscious, but only a physical model can give you that feedback.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I can understand it. I think there's something about, for me, Pratap, when I go to like a museum or something and there's a display and it says, please don't touch, it makes me want to touch it 10 times more. I don't know, I don't know why that is.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe it's a rebellious.
It's a human thing. It's a human thing. Your sense, one of your real large part of your 5 senses are in these 2 things called hands. So the hands will want to touch. It's like, it's like when you see food, it's like going to a restaurant and someone saying, please don't taste. Or you go to a gallery and someone will say, please close your eyes. The don't touch is equivalent to that, right? You have those senses sitting here and then you're telling someone not to use it.
Torture.
It's a natural thing that people will do. So yeah.
So what gets you excited about design then, Pratap? Something maybe personal, maybe, something that you feel more than you kind of understand. I wonder what gets you sort of your blood pumping and your chest pumping. What makes you excited?
I think what makes me truly excited is when I come down to the studio and, the team shows me what they've done and we've got either Dynoc on it or whatever it is. And, you can feel that reaction at an emotional level. And then if that then, happens when you show it to management, when we take covers off some of our clays, sometimes management has literally clapped. And, and then the final one is, of course, when you unveil the car to the public, that reaction, that's a real rush of energy, of adrenaline. You feel so, you feel that it's been worth it, right? When you show it to the public and you get a hopefully positive reaction, you really feel that all the effort that you've put in, has been worth it. And you want that feeling again and again and again. It's a bit addictive, and that's what keeps you going. That, when we do show this at whatever forum, internal or external, I hope it excites people about the world and about makes them feel hopeful about where we are. And so that's one. The second thing is not as exciting, but intriguing for me is how AI is going to play out in the next 5, 10, 15 years. I think it's I won't call it a tool, but it's something that will fundamentally change the world. And, I don't know what effect it's going to have on car design as a profession, car designers. What will happen is not something that gets my blood pumping, going back to the analogy you use, but at least it keeps me sort of intrigued and I wonder where that's going to go. It's not something I know enough about, so it's sort of piqued my curiosity, how AI will play out.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting. I was speaking to someone earlier today, actually talking about how AI could be used to fully design a vehicle and, the role that designers might play in that, because, there's a worry, there's an argument that, designers might not have something to do, but then there's also the argument where, hang on, the AI can only, do what it's told to do. So as a designer, you need to sort of evolve and be able to work with it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The full extent of AI is not known, because there is conversations that AI can become in itself, if it reaches what's called AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. It can itself generate situations to remove human beings from any system. So it's totally an ungoverned area of the world that's developing. So so designers may or may not have a role at all, and you may not be able to stop it. So and not only design, in anything, right? So like I said, when AGI comes in, we need to really, I don't think we know enough about what it can lead to. So that's something that sort of, like I said, it's there in the back of my mind. At the moment, going back to your question, what excites me is that, are we creating, products and design for the future of the company and the future of automotive design that are distinctive? Are we going to leave something behind for the world, that is appreciated? Like we look at cars from the past, and we really, when we see them in our world today, we say, look, that's such a beautiful object. Whatever it is, a Cinquecento or a E-type, whatever it is, whatever has made a truly distinctive has marked a distinctive point in history. Are we able to create one or two of those kinds of objects, right? You'll do many will come and go. Are you able to leave behind one or two that will truly stand that test of time? I think that's what is my larger, dream actually in what we're creating.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So just to wrap up then, Pratap, maybe we can talk about, we're talking about AI here and potential future scenarios, but what would you say to, young designers that are maybe coming into this new world with new tools? What sort of advice would you give them as they're starting their career in design?
Yeah, I think, I never stress on tools. Today you know a tool, tomorrow there'll be another one and someone else will know that. What I always tell people is don't make the best piece of software is between your ears. A lot of people ask me, what software should I use to become a better designer? I think, like I said, the best piece of software is between your ears. Use that a lot, your brains. Look at where society is going, how tastes are changing. Track things outside design. I think, automotive design is a part of a larger system. And I think if you can understand what drives a system, you will be able to sort of understand that link between that larger system and automotive design. So don't look at automotive design in isolation. Read about the world, understand finance, understand marketing, understand other business areas. Because it all plays a huge influence in what shapes a vehicle in this day and age. So that would be one thing I would say, broaden your horizon beyond design. I think I speak to a lot of car designers and they say, yeah, I look at architecture, I look at furniture, I look at fashion, that's still design. Do you know enough about the economy? Do you know enough about what's going to drive a purchase decision tomorrow? Are you able to get into that future customer's head? And I think for that, read and research and understand more of the world around you. And that will never go away, right? The tools around you will change, but if you have that fundamental understanding of where design fits in a company and in a larger societal context, I think you'll be fine. So that's one thing I would say. And the second thing I would say is that, stand for something, stand for when you're putting out your portfolio, truly believe in what your project work says about you. Put a piece of that, because people like us get hundreds of portfolios. It's very hard to go through a lot of them, and they all start melting in the mind. So stand out for something, and it doesn't need to be hundreds and hundreds of sketches. I mean, we've hired in MADE, for example, and I'm sure other studios do it. We've hired people based on a couple of sketches we've seen on their Instagram account. So keep some of your social media accounts going, put some good stuff there. Like I said, we've actually contacted people on Instagram and hired them, and they're working upstairs. Any amount of portfolio sending may or may not have worked, but if something has caught my eye, or the chief designer's eye here, or in our studio in India, we go out and contact those people. So put something unique, put something great, put something that speaks about your taste. We hire people with taste, a certain taste, a design sensibility, and taste is important. No tool will teach you that. So we've got guys on the team which with a piece, with pencil on a little piece of paper, they can draw something, they can take it to Photoshop, they can take it to Blender, but it's all about taste. At no stage in those 3 or 4 phases does the tool actually help your taste. You either have it or you don't. So cultivate that sense, of good design, and it's something that can be cultivated like anything else. It's a skill that takes practice, and very, very few people actually give it the importance that it should have. You can be technically a master, an alias, and God knows what, but if there's a fundamental taste issue, then you have a problem. So think about that, and see how you can develop a flavor and a taste of your own, and I'm sure you'll stand out and do well. So society at large and taste.
Yeah, some great words of wisdom there, I think. Amazing. Thank you so much, Pratap, for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today. So thank you for chatting to us, and hope to speak to you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. And like I said, watch out for Mahindra Design. There's lots more to come, exciting times ahead. And, the more you see of the work we show, the more all of this will hopefully make sense. So
thank you, Pratap. Cheers. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Bye.